He opened the gift with the kind of joy that lights up a whole room. His friends were cheering, laughing, high-fiving. The PS5 sat proudly in his hands, the one thing he said he wanted, and I was the one who got it for him. 4 years of loving this man. 4 years of staying, trusting, building. I saved every spare dollar I had for that console. I knew money would be tight, but I didn't care. Love is supposed to be generous, and birthdays are supposed to be special. But in the middle of his party, surrounded by all his friends, I heard something that made my heart stop. His best female friend, Jessica, looked me straight in the eye and said, "I wish I was a thought so I could afford a PS5 too." I froze. I blinked. Did she really just say that? I gave her a look that said, "Excuse me?" And all she did was smirk and walk away, muttering, "Never mind." That's when something cracked open inside me. I turned to Mike, my boyfriend, the man I'd just dropped hundreds of dollars for, and I asked him, calmly, why would she say something like that? He didn't look concerned, didn't look confused, just shrugged and said, "She's just messing with you. Can't you take a joke?" I should have walked away right then, but I pushed. Why would she joke like that about me? Why does she feel comfortable calling me that? And that's when Mike, the man who once told me he loved me, who knew everything about my past, who said it never mattered, looked me in the eye and said, "Well, everyone knows you were a thought before you met me." It didn't sound like a joke. It didn't even sound cruel. It sounded like a fact, like something he had practiced saying, like something he had said before. I was stunned. All I could say was, "How?" And he said it casually, like he was telling me the weather. You know, messing with best friends. Then, like he was the one being noble, he patted me on the shoulder and said, "It's okay. You're not who you were back then. And if I could get over your colorful past and thought mentalities to give you a chance, then maybe you could get over Jessica's comments and give her another chance too." There were people around. Laughter in the background. Balloons. Beer. Music. But I couldn't hear any of it anymore. I stood up, walked over to the gift table, picked up the PS5, bow and all, and walked straight out the door. He called me 20 times. I didn't answer. I took the bow off in the car and drove straight to the store I got it from. The clerk asked if anything was wrong with it. I smiled politely and said no. They scanned the box. I got every dollar back. It wasn't about revenge. It was about dignity. About not rewarding someone for making me feel small in front of strangers. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. My phone didn't stop ringing. Not just Mike, but all his friends, including Jessica. They were calling me petty, immature, dramatic, saying I brought this on myself, that I had made poor choices, and now I was acting like a child. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just texted Mike one thing. "You deserve better than me, so find someone who wasn't a thought, and maybe she'll buy you a PS5. That's when he lost it. Called me the biggest asshole he's ever met. Said I should be grateful he even looked past my colorful past. That I should be happy someone like him gave someone like me a chance. And suddenly, everything made sense. This whole time, 4 years, he didn't see me. He saw someone he had to forgive, someone he tolerated, someone who was lucky he stayed. But let me tell you something. When I was 18, I dated a guy I met online. We were together for 3 months. It ended, and I moved on with a guy I worked with. I found out later, much later, that they were close friends. I didn't know that. I had no way of knowing. But when I found out, I stopped dating completely. Took time for myself. I wasn't proud or ashamed. I was just human. And when I met Mike 2 years later, I was honest with him. From the beginning, I told him about Jake and Adam. Told him I didn't know they were friends. Told him it was a hard lesson for me. He said he understood, that it didn't matter, that he cared about who I was now. But he lied. Because the only way Jessica would ever say something like that in front of a room full of people, with no shame, no hesitation, is if he told her something that made it okay. And if his friends were comfortable laughing at me behind my back, it's because he gave them permission. So when I walked out of that party with the PS5 in my arms, I wasn't taking revenge. I was taking back my self-respect. Because the truth is, that wasn't just a joke. It was a pattern of quiet mockery, of sharing things I told him in confidence, of pretending I was something less, and then calling it love. Love doesn't talk about your past to strangers. Love doesn't stand silent when you're insulted. Love doesn't pat you on the shoulder like you're a burden it's chosen to carry. Love defends. Love protects. Love doesn't shame. And love sure as hell doesn't act like a PS5 is worth more than your dignity. So, am I the asshole? For taking back a gift from someone who insulted me? For drawing a line when no one else would? For deciding that maybe love shouldn't feel like shame in a prettier box? I don't think so. But maybe you do. And if you do, I hope to God you never find yourself being handed a backhanded compliment about your growth by someone who doesn't even know who you are. Because I know who I am. And I know what I deserve. It's not forgiveness for a past I never hid. It's not silence in the face of mockery. And it's definitely not a man who thinks he's doing me a favor by standing next to me while his friend calls me names. I didn't return the PS5 out of spite. I returned it because I finally understood something. He never actually saw me as someone worth respecting. And that's a much bigger problem than any gift I could ever buy. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do isn't yelling, or fighting, or staying to prove your side. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away with your head high. This story isn't just about a PS5. It's about quiet disrespect, the kind that builds slowly, behind closed doors, inside jokes, and half smiles. It's about a woman who trusted someone only to find out he had never trusted her back. And it's about the moment she chose to protect her dignity instead of protecting someone else's comfort. So now I want to ask you, have you ever let someone stay in your life after they made you feel small? Have you ever laughed off a joke that cut a little too deep? Have you ever mistaken tolerance for love? If this story made you feel something, leave a comment. Tell us what you would have done. Share your own story. Because stories like this, they're not just drama, they're mirrors. This is AITA Story Vault, and we'll see you next time.